Maseches Bava Kama Daf Nun Amud Beis. In the Mishnah, the Mishnah says as follows: we are still in the bore, we're deep in the pits, in the bore. This shows Lulunishma Savimoyri Menachem Ben Akiva Bas Moshe Rafuas Nina Chaya Bas Gila Rochel Noach Lionel Ben Yulia Oria and Shmuel Avram Ben Yehudis. Says the Mishnah. Yeah, says the Mishnah like this. A choifer bor b'rshus harabim. A person dug a hole in Rshus Harabim. V'nofal lesoicho shiur or chamor. A shiur or chamor, an ox or a donkey fell inside. Chayev, the person is chayev. The Mishnah uses the examples used by the Torah. Yeah, shiur or chamor. That is excluding what? Excluding a person or kelim. Now, if a person got injured there, he is chayev b'alabor, as we said in Daf Kaf Chesish. Yeah, but if we say that, but if the person died, then he is potter. If the person died, then he's potter. And what else? Kelim. If kelim fell inside, your beautiful new china set fell inside, potter. Says the Mishnah. Animal fell inside, you chayev. Whether they died or got injured. We're going to see both options. Now we're going to explain and elaborate on the 5 different types of bow, which in previous times we just brushed over it. Now it's going to be an issue, the different shapes and forms of the bow. Bow is round. Bow is a round pit. Bow is a round and small pit, as the Gemara is going to explain later on. Shiach in Hebrew, in old and modern Hebrew, is called shucha. That's a trench. Shucha is a trench that is long and narrow. Me'oro is a square bowl. It's a square pit and it's covered. It's not completely covered, obviously, otherwise the person wouldn't fall in, but it's mostly covered on top. Charitzin, naturally covered. Yeah, there's like an opening from the side. Charitzin, a charitz is one, also a square hole, but that square is uncovered. And each detail will be important for later on. Then Ne'itzin. Ne'itzin is basically like conically shaped, like the shape of a cone, and like the bottom of the pencil, like it tapers down, as you go along. It's wider on the upper side and lower, in the bottom side, lower east side. Chayav. So in all those types of boros, and we're going to see what the chiddush is, on all these types of boros, all shapes and types, you always chayav if an animal fell inside. In Ken, frag the Mishnah, lama ne'emar bo. Why did the Torah say davka bo? Why did the Torah choose to talk about the round one? Because it's not only the round one, any type of hole you chayav. Why does the Torah talk about bo? And says the Mishnah, ma bo sheyesh bo kedei lomis asor tfochim, just like a bow. Chazal had in their understanding that a regular bow is a asor tfochim. Asor tfochim is supposed to be a bow. This is not, according to this sugya, it's not written anywhere, but the bow is a asor tfochim deep. And if the Torah tells you that the show bow may die, the show or chamo may die, that is to say the 10 tfochim bow, that's the depth of a bow that can kill an animal. So it's a asor tfochim. So just like the bow is 10 tfochim deep and is a killer. Of course, so too, all other shapes and forms of other boros, even though they're shaped differently. And as we'll see in the Gemara, the shape may affect the actual effect of the bow, may change the effect of the bow because it's narrower or wider or more spacious, less spacious. Nevertheless, we don't care. We brought bow as an example for the prototype of something that can kill a person being 10 tfochim deep. Continues the Mishnah. By the way, the Rishonim say that a bor is not necessarily, the bors in the Torah are not 10 tfochim, they're usually deeper. The bor of Yosef, 10 tfochim is the person can sit there. If he stands there, but sticking out, 10 tfochim is an amma and a bit, about an amma and a half. The person is 3 amos high. 10 tfochim is not that deep. Elamai, the 10 tfochim is the minimum of the bor of the Torah. There are more of them. Yosef, and we see other boros in the Torah. Yeah, Ishmael. Elamaisa, we don't see Ishmael, Ishmael ben Netanya, Ishmael of Gdali ben Achikam, not Ishmael. Yeah, so Lamaisa, bor is at least 10 tfochim. Less than that, you're not chayiv, even if the animal died. Oh, less than 10 tefachim deep, if the animal died by what the 10 tefachim, but less than 10 tefachim, it's 9 tefachim, 9.5, then potu, the bore digger is potu. But if the animal is injured, then you're chayev. Before we continue to the next piece of Gemara, which is a it's easy to translate and understand the next piece of Gemara and understand it just to get the actual words. But the svara, the understanding here, I can just imagine everyone's eyebrows popping up and shooting up. So I'm just going to protect myself and explain a few things before we continue. Yet again, we see today, like yesterday, we're going to have a huge chiddush regarding bor. And I looked, Baruch Hashem, in a few meforshim, and what I'm going to tell you now is a combination of Moshe Feinstein and Chazon Ish. So whether you're from Bnei Brak or New York, you should be happy, or anywhere else in the world. When the Torah tells you that a person is chayiv for digging a bowl and somebody fell inside there, or an animal fell inside, I told you about, I don't think I'm exaggerating, I've said 50 times, that the entire Bava Kama is a big chiddush as it is, right? If I'm sitting here drinking my tea and giving my shiur, and imagine you have a Rottweiler roaming the streets, and biting people, me'ikar adin, if not for Bava Kama, I wouldn't say that I'm chayav. It's not a ma'aseh b'yadayim. I didn't do it. I responsible. When the Torah tells me to be responsible, then I will be. Otherwise, no. The Torah does. The Torah says if your animal runs around, your cat starts scratching everybody, you got to pay. But that's only because the Torah said so, and it's only within the parameters of the Torah. Bo says of Moshe Feinstein, and we saw it actually already hinted in the Gemara before, that a bo is even of a bigger chiddush. Why? Everybody would say, every Tim McKenzie would say, you dug a bore in the street, you got to be responsible. That's all very nice, but let's leave Tim McKenzie out of the story. From Lomda's point of view, my boar is not running around after people. My Rottweiler or my wild ox is really trouble. He's running around and he's chasing people. But my boar is a very static guy. It's static. It doesn't belong to me, first of all. It's in the street. I dug it once, and you know what? I forgot. I don't like to give emotional examples, but I will because I'm fighting other emotions here. Let's say I was playing with my kids and I dug a bore and I'm a very nice, beautiful kind of citizen and everything I do right. I dug a bore with my kids just for fun. And then one of my kids got hurt and we went to tear him. Not even oiness. Something happened. I had to run with my kids back home suddenly and I forgot the bore. The bore is not mine. I'm not interested in owning it. Even if I'm a halachic Jew and I know about kin and chotzer and $5,000 fell into the bore, I'm never going to claim it. It's not my bore. My bore is not moving anywhere. And the people who came to the bore fell. Let them. There was a tzad in the Gemara, remember? People should watch their step. Again, I'm not saying all my sports I'm saying are right, but I'm now being the lawyer. I think I can be a good lawyer, no? I'm the lawyer of the Baal Bor. Shall I change professions? No? Why are you laughing? I don't think I make such a terrible case of a Baal Bor. My client did the bore. It's not his. The bore is there sitting in the corner. People running around. The other person should be careful. Of course, there's the other side. I know the other lawyer can say nicer things. All I'm trying to show you guys that just to tell me, look, the guy told me yesterday, the bore, what do you, I mean, there are two tzedadim everywhere. Let's start with that, okay? Now, I'm not saying you're potter. Everybody knows at the end of the story, the bore is chayev. I'm just trying to present you a different kind of mahalach. Now we can start with more. Already questions?
I think we learned not so long ago.
Says the Gemara, Omar Rav, says Rav, of course bor is chayev, but bor shechiyev elav Torah, the bor that the Torah is making you liable on, lehevloi v'lo lechavotoi. Wow. When an animal falls, head diving into a bore, there are two things that happen there. Hevloi means bad air. The air underneath, although at the beginning it looks like it's very cool and cold and nice, the hevel, because the bore is a more constricted area, the hevel, how do they translate hevel? It's like suffocating air, like more dense kind of air. That alone can kill the animal. Says Rav, unbelievable chiddush. When the Torah says you chayev on the bow, you are. If your friend's donkey fell inside, you know why you chayev? Because the conditions there It's not the air conditions there are not good for the animal because it's like a suffocating small kind of place, and that quickens and hastens the death of the animal. And on that you're chayiv, v'loy lechavotoi, not because of the bump. The reason you're chayiv, the reason is not because the animal bumped and broke its skull. Please, no questions for the next 10 minutes. This is kind of Gemara which I have to read, I have to explain. You got to absorb, and it's very North Korean now until further notice. Thank you. It's not because of the differences in height and the boom bump collision. It's because of the bad air. Wow. I know that sounds a bit strange. I would say mapitom. The thing dived head in, slashed the skull, and you're talking about the bad air? Yes. Let's continue. Al makasova. That is to say, Rav must have understood. Chavoto karka oilam hu demaz kalei. Chavoto, when the animal fell into the bottom of the pit and boom, bam, bang, bang, that happened through something which is karka oilam. It's the earth belonging to the world and not belonging to him. Now I'm going to represent Moshe and Chazon Ish to the best of my ability. They say like, when I created the bow, yeah, what did I really make? The bow is not mine at all. Not even one iota of it. Nothing new, listen carefully. Nothing new came here except that I manipulated and I changed the differences in height. I took something that does belong to anybody, maybe to the area, and I'm playing and manipulating the heights in such a way that's dangerous. I did not add anything at all. As opposed to the show, which is really mine, fire, which is mine, nothing new added here. The hevel, the bad air that came in, that's a new entity that came in. That's a bit of a bit Chazon Ish, yeah? The air is not mine either. The air is the air. But the bad air is something new that's filling the space, the airspace of the bow. So Rab says, listen, to me, bow is a huge chiddush. It's a groma shebagroma. I'm not doing anything. The person damaged himself, says the Chazon Ish. When he fell, and he fell from this height to that height, of course it's my fault, the differences of height. But there's no new item here. We're learning Bava Kama. It's all about new items, fire, shiur, chamo, something. That new air, that's something new that the Torah alleges and connects to me. And therefore, of course, the animal died because of the bumping. As we're going to see very soon, of course, Rav will be mechayev an animal that bumped and died right away. But because the hevel always helps the animal become worse, that's what the Gemara says. The hevel is like a side help. In other words, the same conditions upstairs, maybe the animal, let's say the animal would fall upstairs somewhere, bumping on something, yeah? But in the good air, to recuperate in good air is much easier than to recuperate when you're stuck and hurt, not you. Plus, you're in a very bad air conditions, bad air conditions. In that matzav, that worsens it. So even though the air is a side thing, but that's the only new thing that there is. So it's less of a grama and more of a new item that I brought into the scene. That's Begadol how they explain it. Emel says, Rav, of course you have the bumping, but only if the bumping is together with the hevel, together with the bad air, as opposed to another case, which we'll see later on. That's Rav. Thank you for your patience. Rak Rega Teva Kasha. Shmuel argues, and Shmuel says what you guys would say. It's very nice what you say, Rav. Of course, the hevel is a new item, but the chavoto is more of the damage. Chavoto, before we started today's shiur, everyone would say the chavoto, the boom, the bump, is definitely the stronger factor. The hevel is the conditions that allows the chavoto to work. I'm basing on the Chazon Ish, yeah? But lemaisa, the chavoto is the punch line at the end, the boom. So says Shmuel, it's very nice. I agree with you, Rav. It's a one way machlokas. I agree with you, Rav, that hevel is also a factor, but the chavoto, the bump, look at him, he's bleeding, he broke his skull. That's Shmuel. So lemaisa, they both agree that the chavoto is a factor. That the hevel is a factor. However, Rav says the if I had a case of a boar that doesn't have bad air inside and only chavoto, soon we're going to see such a case, then Rav would say I'm not chayiv. I'm only chayiv when the hevel is a factor, because the hevel is the only new thing that came into the formula. The im toimar, we continue with Shmuel, lechavotoi omru toiro veloi lehevloi. Sorry. Maybe really The chavota is only what the Torah talks about and not the hevel, because Rashi says on the hevel we can say just the other way around from the Achronim. Hevel is something that came later. I actually dug a bore. The hevel is more of a secondary thing. Says the Gemara, no. Don't ignore hevel. Don't ignore hevel. Hevel and Kain. The hevel, the bad air, is a factor. How do you know? When the Torah said bow, it doesn't specify that the bow is a hard fall. Maybe that bow is a very nice thing which I made in the picnic for my children. And you know what? In the bottom of the bow, I have a very nice duvet. I have a comforter. How do you say a thick blanket? You know what I mean? Yeah. I have a very nice thick blanket. Like what? Down, whatever. Comforter, whatever I'm saying. Yeah, the kids are all the words. If I have something that absorbs the fall, yeah, then the Torah doesn't differentiate, which means that they both agree that the hevel is a factor. The question is, again, Rav believes, like I told you all the time, that my ownership is important here. And if all I did was playing around with the differences of height of the land that belongs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that alone is not a chiyuv. There has to be something like a catalyst before called the hevel. Says the Rosh. I'm going from Nachronim all the way to the Rosh. Says the Rosh, Ellen Rubinstein, my esteemed friend, that bow would be in the person's garden, yeah, and there is no hevel, yeah, just bump. Says the Rosh, yes, he would be chayav. Why? Because then the land is mine. If the land is owned by me, if the land is lachish 40/6, and I make a hole in the merpeset, and I allow everyone to come and play, you're right, it's worse because it's mine. It's mamish mine. And then I can't say, the floor is not mine. Yes, the floor is yours, yeah? But she'enken and all the heights are yours. If I do it in the street, I'm playing around with someone else's land, then says Rav, I am potur, except for the hevel is a new item that I brought into the scene. It's a completely new thing. The hevel wasn't there was ground. That's a whole thing that came. On that together, yeah, with the whole factor, that's it's kilu says the someone, one of them says, it's like my ox, one second, lack of oxygen. If my ox and oxygen, if my ox would push someone into a bow, I'd be chayiv. My ox into my bow. The hevel is like the ox. The hevel is kill a catalyst to make the fall worse. Get what I'm saying? Because the conditions make it worse. And that factor, the hevel, is what makes me chayiv. My benayu, and I really, really appreciate you listening to the shiur. My benayu, what is the difference between Rav and Shmuel? At the end of the day, they would both say that if an animal came in, bang, and banged its head, even Rav would be mechayev because there is a hevel there, and Shmuel, of course, would be mechayev. Yeah, anyways, he's mechayev in both. So what's the difference between Rav and Shmuel? Are we just philosophizing? Answers the Gemara. Listen to a very, very clear case, which we've seen a few dapim ago. Ika benayu. There's a difference between them. The Ovad Goiva B'Rshus Harabim. The persona, you know what he did? He created a mound in Rshus Harabim. He created a mound in Rshus Harabim. Imagine yourself in a mound which one way goes not like a regular slant, a regular, like a bit of a steep hill, but the animal can go there. And on the other side, it's a completely like a cliff, like a straight drop. Thank you. The animal climbs up on the mount created by me, and then boom, it falls from the other side, 10 tefachim down, onto where? Onto the floor, onto the ground, the pavement, the sidewalk of Rshus Harabim. That would be a difference. Voila. You tell me. There's no bad air there. It's a street. It's a beautiful, amazing air of Ramat Bet Shemesh Chodesh Kislev. It's such nice air outside. It's not the pit. There's no bad air at all. According to Rav, I am potur. It's just the drop. And I'm only playing around with the heights, and that's it. I'm playing with the topography of the area. It's not mine. Says Rav Potur. Says Shmuel, Mapitom. Shmuel says, more of like, I would say, what we say is a mainstream opinion. Shmuel say, no. At the end of the day, you created the drop. That's bad enough for me. That's bad enough. That creation of whole is, I don't care about ownership. Whole doesn't care what you own. It's not about owning. It's about behaving like a behemachaya. Mimela, the fact you've created that difference of height, according to Shmuel Yuchayev, look at the words of the Gemara. Lerav, according to Rav, agoiva lo nechayev. According to Rav, the differences of height above ground, above ground, you're not chayev because there's no bad air. The Shmuel, agoy benami michayev, full stop. According to Shmuel, and halacha is like who? Any wild? Wow, you people are geniuses. According to halacha is like Shmuel, And what does Shmuel say? No, I'm mechayev on you playing around with someone else's play-doh, so to speak, someone else's ground, because it's not about ownership. Shmuel learns bor is about creating an ezek. Although I I don't have any new item here, I'm still chayav according to Shmuel. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. What I managed to tell you so far is basically combination of three different perushim, and Baruch Hashem, to me, it's much clearer now, I would say, and I'm happy to hear your questions now. Yes, Rabbi Isai HaChashuvim. The question of my friend here, Tzvi Rosen, makes me add something. Of course, the Hevel doesn't belong to the person like this spoon belongs to me. But when the Torah made the Gzero, who says the bor belongs to the person? The Torah made the Gzero. There's a cost of the bor skiluhis. Says Rav, this is a very important factor, one of the Chronim, once the Torah says this very big chiddush of I own the bor, which is in the street, makes more sense that I own the hevel than I own the actual ground, because the ground I don't own. The hevel is the new item. Makes more sense that I ki'ilu own the new item, linyan is the effect of the person is weaker, but hevel true. But the mice, it's mine. So mimeli, you always have to have that factor there on the animal's way to being completely killed. Like Messiah Ledvar Ve'erchayev, kind of logic. Yes. I'm listening. Right there. Okay. My time at the Rav. Yitzchak, you're right. Why does Rav say what he says? What's Rav's source? That the hevel is the factor. The Omer quote. The pasuk says, "V'nofal." If it fell, the animal fell. What does it mean it fell? Achipol derech nefila. The regular way a person or animal fall into a pit is head first, right? Sometimes you have an animal that falls backwards into the pit or side, but usually that's not the case. Usually falls, and the first thing that hits the ground is the head, especially for shor v'chamor. It's not up there, yeah? It's like the head is down there. That's usually the first vital organ that comes in is the head. So Mimele says, like Yitzchak saying, the first thing that hit him is the bad air, which is already giving him bad conditions for the whole story. So hevel is a factor. Well, Shmuel, how does Shmuel explain? Because Shmuel doesn't care about the air as much, not as much. Says Shmuel, no, v'nofal, kol deu mashma. He says, no, nofal means any shape or form. Could be even if it falls backwards or falls to the side. And really, the hevel didn't affect his lungs first time. Maybe the hevel did not start the job. In other words, Shmuel looks at nofal as more of a general term. And mimela, any nefila would work either by hevel or by chavoto. Shmuel is much more actually machmir, either or yurchai, whichever way. None. Says, we're quoting the Mishnah now. What did the Mishnah say? Im ken, if so, lama ne'emar bo. We said in the Mishnah, why does the Torah talk about bo? Answers the Mishnah, ma bo sheyesh b'kedel misasot tfachim, of course sheyesh b'kedel misasot tfachim. Bo was chosen to be the prototype of all evils of his type, because a asar tfachim is bo that we know from a soira. A bo is at least 10 tfachim, so too the others is 10 tfachim. That's the way I'm already giving you the answer. Now the Gemara has a different idea here. Frag the Gemara, Bishlam al Shmuel, according to Shmuel, af kol, when we said in the Mishnah, not only bor, but other items as well, we thought it means not like I told you now. Other items, my friends, were not written in the Mishnah. La tuye, to include goiva, the mound, the height. According to Shmuel, there's an item that the Mishnah is missing, and the Mishnah is hinting to it, alluding to it, but saying there's more. There's other stuff, which is what? The upside down bor, the bor above ground, which is really a mound of 10 tefachim high. Very good. According to Shmuel, there's this hidden item in the Mishnah that's being merumas, and it's also 10 tefachim. The height above ground is only 10 tefachim to be chayiv. Ela leRav, according to Rav, afkol la tuimai. According to Rav, there is no other item. All the items mentioned in the Mishnah are mentioned in the Mishnah. And the other item of 10 tefachim above ground, according to Rav, you're not chayiv on. Yeah, you can't say that's what the Mishnah is alluding to. It's not true. If you have a mound above the ground, you're not chayiv. So if so, what's the word kol? What's this mysterious word? What are the extra things that the Mishnah is adding without telling me? Answers the Gemara, like I told you before. You know what it's coming to include? La'atui charitzin v'ne'itzin. To tell you the other types of bow. The other types of bow mentioned in the Mishnah, the one that's conically shaped, the one that's shaped like a square, the one that's shaped like this and that and the other. That's what the Mishnah is saying that we're coming to include. Not only the bow of the Torah, because in the Chumash, it only says bow. Doesn't say me'or, doesn't say ni'itzin. The word in the Torah, looking Parshas Mishpatim again and again, says bow. So the bow in the Torah, you add on top of that other types of boros. Correct the Gemara, charitzin v'neitzin, those other types, behetik. It says outright, they're written in the Mishnah. Why does the Mishnah have to tell me what is coming to include? The Mishnah already said it at the beginning. It's not some mysterious item. And says the Gemara, no. Hani, yes, they're written at the beginning. Tada mefaresh, full stop. That's the way we understood it all along, which means the Mishnah told you chayv on what? On bow, on me'ora, on shichim, charitzin, neitzin, shpitzin, whatever you want, right? That's how it started. Then, we know about them. Then says the Mishnah, wait a second. If you chayv on this and that and the other and all the shapes, how do you know? The Torah only says bow. So maybe only the round bow I'm chayev. On that, the Mishnah answered, no. Bow is the prototype of all the others. The others is not something outside the Mishnah. The others are the same others which we mentioned at the beginning of the Mishnah. At the end of the day, we stay the same as we said before. We stick to our guns. There's one difference between Rav and Shmuel. The truth is, later on, I don't know if you see it with me or with Reb Berman, we will see more differences between Rav and Shmuel. I don't want to confuse you now. The only difference which we see now is what? A mound in the middle of the street. I illegally built a tel. Yeah, the guy playing with his kids, that's Father's Day, quality time. He's making a very nice mound, like a ramp in the middle of the street, 10 tefachim high, with a, as you say, straight drop. Yeah, the other side, they think it's a very cool artistic thing, and they go home. They forgot. Came someone's dog. That's not science fiction. It can happen to their Amud Shemesh, banana horse, so many dogs around. And what the dog climbs, little cutesy poodle climbs up and falls. Are you chayiv or not? What? You pass him like Rav. Yosef is a Rav supporter, a Rav fan, and says you're not chayiv because there's no hevel. Shmuel says otherwise. Shmuel says you are chayiv. The Shmuel says even if you don't have hevel, just chavoto, just the difference in height and the big bumpy bump, that alone is the chiyuv according to Shmuel. And I'm sorry, Yosef, but yeah, Shmuel is the man when it comes to Bava Kama. Of course it has to be. I'm talking that's all Mishnah. That's all Mishnah. No, I know you know, but I know, but I didn't. Thank you for reminding me. That's the whole Mishnah. Ma boat and tefachim, anything above, below the ground, anything subterranean. So to anything above the ground has to be 10 tefachim. Thank you for finishing off the job. Yes, weiter. Excuse me. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Very good, lovely, amazing, and terrific. Weiter, Baruch Hashem. Excuse me. Oh, one more thing we have to add. What would be according to Rav? I don't know. Let me say what I said and then I'll say what you said. According to Rav, what would be with a classical bore, which we found at the beginning of the Masechta again and again? Let's say I leave almost any 3D object in the middle of the street. I leave a big heavy suitcase full of stones or a stone or something in the middle of the street and someone bumped into it. That's bow. And Rav didn't argue. Why? There's no hevel there. Well, the answer is very easy, says Tosfos. We're saying that he bumped into the stone and hit himself and hurt himself against the stone, which belongs to me. Then of course Rav is chayiv. The only time Rav requires hevel is when nothing else belongs to me. But if the item belongs to me, if the suitcase belongs to me and he bumped himself into the suitcase and hurt and his feet are bleeding, I'm chayiv on that because it's mine. That's the word. And even if it's hefker, the Torah still says it's mine, by the way. But the ground, which is not mine in any shape or form, any imagination, it's never mine, then it's all because of hevel. Sorry, what were you saying? Are you okay? Yeah. Right, so let's continue. We have to continue because I told Reuven will be holding at a certain point when I'm leaving. Weiter. Says the Gemara. The Hanikulu, the line starts with the word Vehodo. A good few lines, maybe 10 lines before the end of the narrow lines. All those 5 examples mentioned in the Mishnah, why do you have to mention them? What is that, a Hebrew class? Why does the Mishnah have to mention the round one, the square one, this one, the conically shaped one? Why? Answers the Gemara. Sricha, I need them all. Why? Now think like Rav for a minute. Let's enter Rav's mindset, okay? What is the killer? The hevel. The main, which we care about. Ditana bow, had we only mentioned bow, which is round and small, that's very suffocating to be there. Hava Amina would have said bow, asod is behevla. You know, by 10 tefachim depth, there is hevel, there's bad air. Mishum dekatin bekricha. It's small and round, like karich, like a sandwich. It's karich, it's small and roundish. So it's really bad. It's really hard to breathe there. Small and all-encompassing me. That's hard. Aval shiach, but the trench, the orich, shiach is longer. A trench is for a few soldiers together, right? It's longer. It's more elongated. Ema baso leis behevla. I would have said no. Maybe there I don't have hevel, but the depth of 10 because there's more air on the bitzad, the width. Ditana shiach. But if you only told me shiach, hava min shiach, so the is behevla, I would have said shiach on the other end, of course, has hevel. Why? Shum dekatin. It's still narrow. It's wider, I mean, sidewise, but but it's still like long and narrow. So it has length, but it's narrow from the back to the stomach. Mimela, it's small. Aval me'oro. Me'oro, that's the next title. What's the me'oro we said? It's square. The meraba. No. Me'oro, that's nice and relatively spacious. A square is usually bigger than square and round of the same type. Usually the square is bigger. Yeah. So maybe ema ba'asoro leis behevla. Me'oro has both width and length. Yeah, it's square. So maybe the hevel there is not so bad. And even if you have 10 tefachim down, it's not so deep 10 tefachim. There's no hevel. Maybe that's what I would have said. We continue the Chadgadia. And if you tell me only me'oro, haba min me'oro ba'asoro hu deis behevla. Me'oro with 10, you have hevel mishum de metalela. Remember what I told you? It is covered. The me'oro is partially covered. No air coming from outside, from above. Then what? Then of course there's 10 tefachim depth of bad air, of suffocating air. How do they explain hevel? What's hevel in English? Stagnant air. That's stagnant air. That's what they're right there. Cool. Aval charitzin. Aval charitzin. Deloi metalali. Charitzin are not roofed. They're not covered. Charitz is basically square that's open to the outside world from above. There's nothing covering the top. I would have said no, 10 tefachim, and it's all open and it's like a nice square. Maybe there's no hevel. Last but not least, if only charitzin would be mentioned after all that, hava mina charitzin. So these bohevla mishum deles behu revicha mileel tfei mitzatoi. I would have said, why charitzin have that kind of bad air? Because the top and the bottom are the same size. There's like a straight drop all the way on all four sides. Aval neitzin, the neitzin, which is shaped like a pencil, like a cone, and it's tapering down in the bottom. The top is more spacious than the bottom. So one would say, well, depends how the animal fell. Maybe sometimes the animal falls and the head is above, or a person falls like that. So maybe he has more air on the outside. Maybe there's no 10 tefachim of hevel. Maybe with the depth of 10 tefachim, you still don't have the killer stagnant air. Wow, that's a handful. So Lamaisa, we had to mention all different shapes and forms. We had to mention what? Let's go over it. There's ball, the round one. Shiach is a trench. Then we have the me'oro, which is square and covered. Then we had the charitzin, which is not covered and square. And there is neitzin. Neitzin is like that. All of them, Lamaisa, at the end of the day, as long as it's any kind of cavity in the ground, it is 10 tefachim hevel, that's bad enough. Frek the meforshim, I don't remember who. What's Shmuel? Where's Shmuel? We've been ignoring Shmuel for all this time. Shmuel doesn't care. He cares about the bump. Say there is shining. No. What would happen according to Shmuel? You tell me. If you have a ball which is nicely cushioned with down and duvet and couche and all the nice cushy things, according to Shmuel, would the person be chayev? Yes, because Shmuel is also mechayev on hevel. Yeah, Lu Yitzur, the animal did die. It was nicely cushioned, but the animal was found dead. So something happened here. What happened? It's the hevel, right? Then even Shmuel would agree. It's a Matthias, he died. It was a healthy animal before. The lawyer proves it. No. He died because of the hevel. Then says Shmuel, we have to mention all 5 cases to tell me that even though the shape is this and the shape is that and the shape is the other, lo patli. As long as it's 10 tefachim deep, the hevel is bad hair, bad hevel. Hevel heavy es. Yeah, brought his korban. Hevel brings the korban. None. Weiter. Third wad lan. Nan in the Tudatz. We're in the Tudatz Zehut. Nan. Hoyu pchusin masoro tfochim. What would be, we said in the Mishnah, if those holes are less than 10 tfochim deep? A shor chamor fell inside potu. Is potu. Why? Because less than 10 tefachim is not enough of a bumper. Yeah, it's not and also it's not enough of bad air. There's not bad, the bad air, it's not 10 tefachim deep, not as bad as 10 tefachim deep. But if the animal was injured, then you chayiv even on less than 10, as long as it's more than 3. Well, what did we say? The shor chamor died inside, and your pot. Excuse me. Why you potter if he died by 9 tefachim? Let's say he died in a bowl less than 10 tefachim. Then we say no, I'm potter. My timer. Why is that dispensation? La mishum delays bechavoto. Well, the assumption is because there's no bump. Because 9 tefachim is not deep enough. The difference of height is not deep enough to create a clash, to create a bump. I assume that's the reason. And that's difficult for both Rav and Shmuel, because both Rav and Shmuel believe that chavoto, there's no chavoto, right? So if there's no chavoto, that's not good. He's saying there's no chavoto, then nothing happened, okay? The truth is, you see the assumption was that there's no chavoto, but there is still bad hevel. According to you people, Rav and Shmuel, you both believe hevel is a killer. Shmuel did believe that too, don't get confused. Wait, if 9 tefachim don't have the bumping factor, but have hevel, why are you potter? Hevel is a factor always. Answers the Gemara, loy, mishum delays be hevelo. No. 9 tefachim, there is no hevel either. As I told you, 9 tefachim is not the safest place in the world. There is not enough of a difference to create a bump, a collision, and no hevel either. If so, are you saying there's no hevel? You're saying there's no hevel below 9? That's cool. Why are you saying if the animal was damaged, was injured, you chayev? There's no hevel. Says Tarsus in the Havamani, we thought that hevel is all or nothing. By injury, I would say, okay, makes sense. 10 tefachim is a real bad injury that can kill. It's a killer factor. 9 tefachim can damage, can injure. That makes sense. Hevel, in the Havamina, the Gemara says, make up your mind. The bad air is something to do with the geology, topography. It's like, that strata in the ground of 10 tefachim versus 9 tefachim. Either the hevel is the killer, or it's absolutely good. What's this middle of the road business over here? The 9 tefachim, the hevel can damage but not kill. And it says the Gemara, you are wrong. Amri in, yes. Sorry, ain hevel lamisa. There's hevel lenezikin. You're wrong. Hevel is not all or nothing. The hevel, as you go deeper and deeper, the air becomes a thinner and thinner, or worse and worse, and more dense and stagnant. And Lamaisa, by 9 tefachim or 8 or 7, it's bad enough to disturb the animal to get better into the level of injury. Yeah, it's going crazy and can't heal itself well enough. Mashenkin, by 10 tefachim, the hevel is a killer. The lack of oxygen is worse. So by hevel, just like by injury, there are levels. 9 tefachim, the hevel can injure. 10 tefachim, the hevel can really do the job. Story time, first wide line. Ahud Torah, there was a show, and now we're combining hilchas of Nezikin to hilchas treifos. You tell me now, my esteemed friends, what would be if an animal fell into a pit and broke a good few bones and survived? 9 tefachim. The person has to pay, right? Even if the boar is less than 10, but there was injury, you got to pay. Now, all I care about cows, I don't have a field. I sold my field a few months before Shemitah. I stopped working my field. So now I want to eat the animal. All I care about. I'm a carnivorous. So can I eat the animal? Can I chef it? Let me know. Why is so fanatic? Why can't I eat it? Are you an extremist? You're Bechemish. That's why I live in Bechemish. That's why you're an extremist. You're influenced. And why can't you eat it? Treifa? What? Okay, very good. So let's treifa. The vela is the shchita went wrong. Treifa is the animal is badly injured. It's treifa. But that's what you meant. That's what you meant. Let's read the following story and see if you're right. You are right. But let's see the story. There was the real story, real life case. There was a bull, a toiro, an ox. The nafal larisa de doloi. It fell into what we call in Hebrew amas hamayim. That's some kind of aqueduct or some kind of canal that they have in the fields. And why is it called amas hamayim? I never knew that till a year ago. No. Why is it called ama? Because it's ama deep. The depth of it is 1 ama. One amma is no, that's a tefach. One amma is 6 tefachim. There are 5 average of 6 tefachim in amma, and that is less than 10 tefachim. The 6 is less than 10. So in amma, this bull fell into amma samayim, into the ditch full of water, call it whatever you want, an irrigation canal. And what happened then? Wait a second. It's less than 10 tefachim. Good, fine. And what happened? The animal came out and was injured. Shachte mare. The owner of the animal quickly shechted it. Now, I don't know how badly it was injured. I don't know if it was really not any animal who broke its toe or its hoof is a treifa. There are parameters, right? So the master of the animal, the owner of the animal, shechted it right away. Halfe Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman tarfened it. Rav Nachman pasken after post-mortem. Rav Nachman pasken it's treifa. Why is it treifa? Now, it's not so simple. Let me tell you what Rashi says before we continue. If an animal falls into a pit and comes out like not in great shape, then we have to wait 24 hours. If it walks around coming out of the bore with flying colors, wow, everyone's taking photos, it's coming out alive and kicking and good, no problem. If it's for 24 hours, it's like, okay, we're not sure. You got to wait 24 hours. And then if all you see is like mild injuries, yeah, then we don't say Everea Nisparku, or the lotion is there, Risuk Evorim, that the body is injured. If it survived 24 hours and it's okay, then we say that it's fine. Okay? Because it's not severe injury. Yeah. Nope, see you tomorrow. Yeah, you can watch me online afterwards. Yeah. So Rav Nachman made it treif. Why? Because the person, excuse my language, in his stupidity, he didn't wait 24 hours. The animal didn't come out of there like a sportsman in the Olympics. The animal came out, and he did not wait the necessary 24 hours. Amar Rav Nachman, says Rav Nachman, he commented on the behavior of the owner. If this person would have spent a little bit of money to get a kav, like the amount of its volume, it's a weight, a kav of kemach, of flour, in order to sustain in his journey to Beis Din, the ozal tana be midrosho, and he would go to Beis Din, and we would teach him the halacha in shota me'esles kshero. Yeah, we would have taught him. Wait, Mister, don't be stupid. Don't act too hastily. Wait 24 hours, and then if it survives, then even if it's a bit, lame, a bit not 100%, it's okay. You would be able to eat it. Loy after the Torah, he wouldn't have lost his ox, the Bava Kama that's worth much more than a bit of food he would have taken to Beis Din. Alma Kasav Rav Nachman. The kid said, what does Rav Nachman believe in? That this animal, that we don't know exactly what its medical matzav, would be considered as yesh chavot bepochas ma'asoro. Wait a second. We see that animal cannot just be injured, can be treifa. Treifa, as you said, is really like, that's what you meant, like dead, like you can't check it, right? So you see that less than a sorrow in the Havamina is considered to be dead. How could that be? Nobody said that. Esve, the question which is glaring and obvious, Esve Rav Nachman, Rav challenges Rav Nachman from the Mishnah. It says outright in the Mishnah, which we've seen a few times today, if the bow is less than 10 tefachim deep, potur. He's potur. The shor is potur if it's less than 10 tefachim. My time, why is that? Because there's no chavoto. And here, my friends, chavoto is all we care about. We are now juxtaposition. Now we're positioning together the halachas of money and the halachas of kashrus. Comes to kashrus, if an animal wasn't bichlal injured, was only about to suffocate, and then came out, of course it's okay. That's because an animal was asthmatic for an hour or so, and then it was fine after, no problem. The only factor when it comes to kashrus is risuk evorim, the evorim crashing, literally crashing and crushing. Yeah. In other words, that's it. So now you're telling me the less than 10 tefachim, the evorim would actually boom would be crushed. Yeah. So you see that there is no what? You're telling me something which doesn't make sense. Let's repeat the question. Rav Nachman told me that this animal, had it survived 24 hours, then would say that it'd been okay. But now the assumption is that it's not okay, meaning there is chavot less than a sorrow. Rav Nachman, at the end of the day, treifed it. He deals with that animal as an animal that is not kosher because the evorim crushed. So what do you see? Because why? Less than 10 tefachim, there's no crushing. Okay. and mashma crushing is all we care about. And says Gemara loy mishum delays behevlo. No, 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 no. It's because there's no hevel. The reason is enochinami. We are, when it comes, in other words, please separate between the kashrus and the money. When it comes to kashrus, well, all we care about is the evorim. And when it comes to the evorim, that's one sugya. That's one inyan. Yeah? And could be chavoto exists in even less than 10. Wow. Chavoto alone exists when it comes to less than 10 tefachim. And mimela kashrus all cares about chavoto. There's no problem to eat an animal that at some point in its life was having an asthma attack or a matzav of being nothing to do with that. So don't talk to me about that. You're asking me now why less than 10 tefachim the person is not chayev because there's no hevel. There's no hevel, and he's following probably Rav. Rav is the one who says you have to have hevel in order to be chayev. Less than 10 tefachim, there's no hevel. No hevel, you're not chayev. Why is it treif? Because there's chavoto. Chavoto Rav never cared about anyways. They're very nice. You see? Let's repeat. I see I'm not 100% sure everyone understands. If Rav and Rav Nachman are good friends, they made an alliance and everything is good, why? Rav would paskin, and to make it clear, Rav was paskin about the money and Rav Nachman about the kashrus. Says Rav, an animal that fell into 9 tefachim deep, when it comes to money, you don't have to pay. Why don't you have to pay? Because although the evorim are crushed, I don't care. There's no hevel. No hevel, you don't have to pay. Why? We explained why well enough already. Kashrus department? Mister, that's a different story. I don't care about the hevel over there. I don't care about payment. All I care about the fact is that Lamaisa the evorim nisrasku. The evorim were badly injured mitzad the aver itself. For treifa, that's called treifa. It's at kashrus, it's treif. Don't mix and match. Don't mix business and pleasure. There's money and there's kashrus. And enough community is when the hevel is effective and the risuk evorim did happen and the hevel didn't happen. Yochi, effective more if so, the same old question. Who's a chayev? Why are you chayev if the animal was injured? Aleis behevla. You told me there's no hevel. So why are you chayev if the animal somehow was damaged? Omerlei, the same answer. In hevel amisa v'shevel nezikin. Hevel is not all or nothing. Hevel is not an extremist. Depends. Regarding misa, the hevel of 9 tefachim is not suffocating enough, but it's suffocating enough to help the damage, help the injury, and the injury is an injury less than 10 tefachim behevel. ACV, let's continue. I'm happy we're doing more than an Amud, almost. ACV says the Gemara now asking a question regarding how they perform, execute skila on a person that is lo leinu has to go to the skila. Give me one example for skila. Who's chav skila? Hilul Shabbos. Very good. A person desecrated the holy Sabbath on purpose with a very long procedure. At the end of the day, skila. What do you do with the skila? You don't stone him, not at the beginning. You make him go jump him. You push him off a roof. How tall is the roof? Look at this. Basis skila would be 2 koimois high. What's koimo? Koma is the floor. How big is the floor? Koimas adam, which means the person, the house where the skila would take place, would push the person off that building, off that edifice, is really the same height as a person, which is either 6 or 8 amos, something like that, because each person between 3 and 4 amos. So we're talking about 6 or to 8 amos. The Tanya law, the koimas shaloi, plus the person's own height, yeah, the head is at the top of the body, arekan sholosh. The kids, you have 3 times the person's height, and from there he falls. Now that's way more than 10 tefachim. If you tell me chavoto is effective in less than 10, and that's like Rav, chavoto happens even in less than 10. Make a short building of even less than 10 tefachim, much shorter, and kill him like that. That's a question on less than 10 tefachim. According to you, Mr. Makshan, you're not better than me. According to you, Navi the Sarah. According to you, I'm making like 12 amos. Why making like not 12, 9 amos, let's say. Yeah, make 10 tefachim. Because everybody agrees 10 tefachim is chavoto. That's consensus. So don't attack me. It's time a question between Bava Kama and Sanhedrin. Bava Kama says, what, you need 10 tefachim to die? And Sanhedrin tells you 6 amos, like more. Yeah, 9. Answers the Gemara. Don't ask from Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin is the whole different factor over there. Elokar of Nachman. People used to laugh when we learned in Sanhedrin. It's not true. The applies to the very end of a person's life. even if it's chayv skila. Ror loy misa yofo. You have to choose a person's quick death. He should die quickly and not with Yisurim, a slow death. Of course, to 10 tefachim, if you like push him in a certain angle, boom on the head, could very well be he's going to die by 10 tefachim. It's not that short. But in order for him to die quickly, then you make him fall from a higher distance, taller building, in order for him to die quicker. If so, nigbat fei, make it even higher. Where's the Burj Khalifa when we need it? Yeah, make a nice Burj Khalifa, based Israeli at least, and he should fall from there. Why only take Sodom? That's not so. And it says the Gemara Mushum the Minval. If the person would fall off a very tall building, he would actually crash, and like not be pulverized. Would not be one piece. Will be spread all over the place, benivul, in a way that's disgraceful. We want to maintain a healthy middle. On one hand, we want him to have quick death. On the other hand, not very tall, Israeli style, because that's going to be really, he's going to come out like guacamole. I'm sorry, yeah. Mimela, we want to maintain his dignity both ways, yeah. Not too quick, not too slow, and that's why Sanhedrin, leave Sanhedrin alone. That's nothing to do with our sugya. For 10 tefachim is affecting, maybe slower, but it's chayiv on the board of 10 tefachim. I'd finish here. Thank you very much. Watch your step. Don't fall into the bore. Not in Ruchnis, not in Gaf. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
That joke of the guy in the electric chair.